So the other thing I'm going to have to install is a ground wire, which is going to have to come down from the back along the pole. Needs to be gradual turns. This pole and then a gradual turn. And then I'm going to use these zip ties, which just take one screw. They have a hole already made for the screw. And then I'm going to basically use that to secure the cable and gradually follow my roof down. So, watch how this goes in. Go right by it. Snug it up. Now it's ready to go for when I have my cable in. I can just zip it up like this. You go right through, you pull it tight, and it secures it, and you snip off the extra. So I'm going to do that all the way down. Every couple feet. Maybe 1.5 feet. If this one goes this way and in, it's easy to get it in, but it's harder to cut it off. It's harder to cut the extra off. Whereas if you put it the other way, it's harder to get in and around, but it's easier to cut it off. And I think getting it in and around is the harder part. So I'm gonna flip it over. Keep doing it the way I was doing it. So in this one, I can either go down here, follow this down, or I can go along the wall a little further and then a nice gradual curve around. I think I'm going to try to follow this line down, but I don't want to be right on the metal. So I think I'm going to keep it up on the shingles over here. And you definitely don't want to screw through your shingles, so plan that out accordingly. So I'm going to come down here around this piece right here of the gutter in a nice gradual loop around the gutter. So the next thing we have to do is the ground wire. I've got a 6-gauge here, and it's pretty hefty, so you can bend it fairly easily. You just want to try to keep it no kinks, no sharp turns. So we're going to get that slotted in here, tighten down, and then I'm going to run it down. So get your same number 2 Allen wrench, okay, Allen key, and I think I'm going to run it this way and keep that on the inside. Make sure these screws come out just enough to get it in. You want to make sure this goes all the way in. There. That feels better. Okay. Now we can tighten this down. Make sure you tighten these down real good. You don't want the ground wire coming out. It'll smash the copper a little bit. Okay. Make sure it's not going to come out. Feels pretty solid. Now we're going to slowly bend this without kinking it. And you want to try to get it nice, smooth bend. My plan right now is to attach it to the post right here with the zip tie, and then come down to the other zip ties we set up earlier. So, again, you want to keep nice, smooth curves so the electricity has a nice path to take. So stick this in. And you can pull it tight. Okay. Nice, smooth. Try to keep it away from the gutter a little bit. Okay. Now I can take another zip tie while I'm at it. Just bind this right here. Tighten it down. There we go. Nice and tight. No rattling. And then you can probably get this tightened down too. I'm just going to do this. Nice and tidy. And then we'll go ahead and snip all those off as we go, like this. Snip these guys off. Okay, so we're just going to keep doing this all the way down. This is why I like the zip ties. You can get them in early and then run your wire and just connect them. So you want to try to keep the wire fairly straight. If you can, it'll look a little bit better from the outside. I'm on the very side of my house where nobody really gets to see, so I'm not too worried, but I'm still going to try to keep it fairly straight. So remember, we don't want any sharp corners, so I'm going to take a nice round curve. Again, I'm just trying to get it as straight as possible so that it doesn't look funny from the ground. If you really want to, you can hide all of it in conduit, but just copper wire is fine to be exposed if you don't care. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and snip these off. And yeah, make sure the antennas are pointing up. Good there. We've got our clip in, keep it from falling over. And then, yeah, everything looks pretty good there. And then remember, you don't want it kinked around the gutter. It needs to be a nice smooth curve. So we'll try to do that. Nice gradual curve. And then I'm going to have to do a gradual curve back the other way. So, right about here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is to make sure this isn't flopping in the air, I'm going to try to gradually bend it so it sits on the roof a little bit better. Not any sharp bends, but a nice smooth bend around. And then I can do the same thing up here. I can just bend that down towards the roof a little bit so that it sits a little bit and I don't hear rattling on my roof when the winds pick up. I'm going to just go ahead and try to keep it straight all the way down. This isn't as hard to work with as I thought it might be. Notice how I try to keep it in one of my grooves so it hides it a little bit. Can't quite fit it all. So close. There it is. Okay. So, what I'm going to do, again, trying to keep it gradual. Going to do a gradual bend. Trying to keep it away from the other boxes, so the lightning doesn't try to arc as much. It's pretty straight up and down. So go ahead and cut these off. I'm going to be showing you how to connect your grounding wire to your ground rod. I'm in the US, so a lot of houses have ground rods. If you're in another country, it might be grounding plates or something else. But here in the US, we have ground rods. So I'm going to show you how to connect your grounding wire to your ground rod. However, we have to be safe. So grounding wires, ground rods, they should not have current flowing through them if everything's working properly. But if something isn't working properly, let's say you have a short in your system, or somebody wired it wrong, heaven forbid. If that happens, you will have current flowing through your grounding rod, and it can shock you. So I want to show you how to be safe with that. The other way that grounding rods can have current flowing through is if lightning's striking nearby or close by. Hopefully you're not working outside in lightning storms. So to be safe, the best thing to do is to just turn off your power to everything. So here I have my breaker box. You can see I've got all the different breakers to different parts of my house, but to shut off everything, you just shut off the main breaker. I'm not going to flip it right now, but if you want to be safe and you want to make sure you're not going to shock yourself and you don't have a means to test it, just shut off power to everything. Keep in mind you're going to want to shut down your computer, anything that's not supposed to just have power pulled. But we won't be out there working too long to connect the grounding wire to the ground rod. So it shouldn't hurt anything like your fridge or anything like that. Nothing's going to thaw out in that amount of time. So kill your main power. If you want to test, you can kill your main power, disconnect the wire from the grounding rod, like your current ground wire from your house, and then put a voltmeter or use a multimeter with a voltmeter in it to measure to see if there's any noticeable voltage going through it. If there is, something's wrong with your wiring. You're going to want to get it checked out by an electrician. You shouldn't proceed if that's the case. If you don't have a means to check, you can assume that it's all wired properly, but don't assume too much. Shut off your power to be safe so you don't get electrocuted. Once it's shut off, I'm going to take you outside and show you how to wire everything up. I've got a 1/2 inch ground rod clamp. to go to my ground rod. Here's my house ground coming out. It's already connected. So we're going to have to take that off to be able to fit the other one in. So first thing, take the old one off, or even just move it down. I think we'll take it off for now. That way I can clean the rod off. So you can see over time it gets a bunch of crud built up on it, and you need a really good connection to your ground. So you definitely don't want to put a brand new wire or even your old wire back on it without cleaning it off with something like a metal brush like this. You can also use some sandpaper. Let's see if I can get it side facing you so you can see the difference. See the difference? You'll get the shiny original copper back. See when I do that all the way around. Okay, now you can see the shine off of it. You almost can't even see it with the light because it's shining off of it so good. So that's pretty good. We have to clean off our old wire, our old house ground wire too, since that's not going to touch in the same exact spot. Okay, so now that's nice and shiny. You can see the old ground clamp. The old ground clamp also isn't very shiny, so it's not going to make a good connection. So I'm going to have to clean that too. So let me do that with two hands and I'll get back to you. Okay, as you'll see, I was able to clean out the inside of that, shine it up a bit, make sure that connection's good. I'm not sure what the rule is on basically putting two ground wires into one clamp. So I bought another 1/2-inch clamp, and I'm going to do the old house wire with the original clamp, and then I'll do the new ground for the data center on top. You make sure the screw is on the opposite side as the ground wire. I'm going to get this one down a little bit lower so that I can fit my other one. And then we're just going to tighten that up. Tighten it by hand first. Again, I want my new one to be able to fit on top, so I'm just going to put this one here. Make sure you tighten it real good. So it should not move at all, and it should press that copper right into the copper of the rod. This wire's 6 gauge, so it's pretty strong. But if you just have some angled metal cutters, they work pretty good. So we're going to cut it right about here. Get it all the way in. Copper's pretty soft. So what we're going to do is make sure it's a nice smooth curve all the way. Move some stuff around here so you can see. So you got it coming down. Nice smooth curve. Kind of follows the other ground wire a little bit. I would bury it if I had time, but I don't have time. That's something to note is if it's going to be run over, mine's in a spot like below the bushes, so I'm not worried about it. Nobody comes back here, but it's if it's in a walk path or a place where it could get damaged easily, you should basically wrap it in this conduit before you attach it. So you can run the conduit, or you can directly bury the cable. If it's pure copper, you can directly bury it safely. Okay, so I have the new ground clamp. I'll loosen it up. And the wire goes on this end. You can see it's kind of a point to fit the wire in. The wire does not go on the screw end. So I'm going to make this go the opposite way as the other one. Put it like that. I'll get it on there. I'll finagle it where we want it. Okay. Make sure it's on one of the shiny parts that you smoothed out. I'm going to go ahead and bend this slightly so it stays in place. And then we will clamp it down. Remember to get it real tight. It's a big bolt, so it's going to be hard to break it. Can be done, but it's more important that it smashes the copper and makes a good connection. Okay, nice and tight. If you have any extra, I wouldn't want it sticking out and cutting someone in case some kid climbs back here. So just snip it off. Okay. And then make sure those are nice and tight. I think we're good. We got a good connection. And that just runs back all the way up the house. All the way up and around.